Our government and official leaders are quietly admitting that we are in a recession because Scott Bessent pretty much said that there are sections of the economy that are already showing strain, and this is something that we should all be concerned about. And what this really means is that there are different sections of the economy that are flashing red, but we're not going to make a big deal about it for now. You know, we've been talking about this recession/depression for a couple of years now, and the reality is we're already in the thick of it. A lot of the things have already happened to put all of this in motion, and we're already experiencing it right now. And the reason why our government will not admit it, and the Fed will not admit it either, is because on paper, all the numbers still look good. You know, the stock market is still up. The jobs reports are still looking strong, at least in their opinion, right? And they just go on TV and continue to smile and talk about how this is the greatest economy ever. But here's the difference between this recession/depression versus any other one that we've gone through in history. You know, in past recessions, people had safety nets and people had savings. People had stability, especially when it comes to their housing situation. People had affordable credit. I mean, look what happened in 2008. We didn't have high interest rates back then. Also, there was still some government credibility in hopes that they might do the right thing to try and help people. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe not print $6 trillion during a worldwide pandemic and completely implode our economy. Probably wasn't such a great idea. But of course, the issue is today that most people's safety nets are completely gone. You know, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. The stats are as follows. It's 25% of households are living paycheck to paycheck. So, okay, that's not most. 75% are not. However, a lot of people are saying that 95% of their paycheck is going only towards the essentials right now, meaning housing, food, clothes, utility bills. And by the time all that stuff is paid, there's nothing left. And that's why we're in a situation right now where one unexpected car repair bill or one unexpected medical bill or a layoff can trigger a chain reaction for someone that ends in eviction or even bankruptcy. And the current administration keeps pressuring the Fed to cut interest rates. And if somehow they do this, this is going to magically fix the situation and everything's going to get better instantly with a big rate cut, even if they drop rates back down to zero, right? Their argument is that keeping rates high is crushing small businesses and it's hurting home buyers. People can't afford to buy homes. Also, anyone with any kind of debt are seeing higher interest payments, like on credit cards, for example, where people are paying 25, 30% interest, things like that. So the higher interest rates are hurting rather than helping. And the argument is if we reverse all that and go back down, then the debt payments will become more affordable, housing payments will become more affordable. But in reality, we've already seen that movie. We already seen what happens. You know, they did that during the pandemic, drop interest rates to practically zero. And where did that get us, guys? It got us to the largest asset bubble, the largest housing bubble that we have ever seen. And today I'm walking in North Bay Village down West Drive, down this beautiful waterfront promenade they have over here. It's absolutely gorgeous, as you can see. But the point is that lowering the interest rates didn't do anything to help anyone the first time around, you know, because since they did that, sellers can't sell because people are locked into their low mortgage rates, so they can't move. You know, renters can't buy because the prices went up too high and they can't qualify for the loan. And a lot of people who've been wanting to buy a house are now completely priced out. And even the ones who do own the homes are being priced out of their own home due to the exponential rise in the cost of just being an owner. According to the most recent Zillow report, you have to spend an extra 16 grand a year on top of your mortgage payments just to be a homeowner now. And so one thing that's probably going to be different this time around with this recession/depression is that it's going to shrink everyone's relevance. You know, you're seeing the amount of job losses pile up due to AI, due to corporations cutting costs and trying to improve their bottom line. They're doing whatever they can right now. They're being absolutely ruthless with the job cuts in order to be able to keep turning profits and keep seeing their share prices go up. And you're not just competing with other humans anymore. Now you're competing with algorithms. Now you're competing with artificial intelligence. And the problem is the system is kind of so broken now that everybody has stopped trusting that our people in charge are going to be able to make it better. Everybody has lost faith in how this is going to get better. Like even me, I don't see how it's going to get better, guys. I don't see any clear path to this getting better, because the only way it could get better, in my opinion, is if the government finally just gets their hands out of it. You know, stop printing money, stop having artificially low interest rates, let the market set interest rates where they need to be for all the different loan products, stop buying mortgage-backed securities, stop with all the entitlement programs, just stop. Stop interfering with everybody's life. Stop interfering with the financial system. This is what got us here. But we know that's not going to happen. In fact, they continue to meddle even further as things continue to get worse. They created the problem, and now, lo and behold, they're there to fix the problem. The Fed can't do anything. Their hands are completely tied. If they keep rates high or even raise them, they're going to crush the economy. If they lower rates, inflation comes roaring back, which we're already seeing happen right now because that seems to be the path they have chosen. All the politicians care about is getting reelected. They don't really care about your problems. They just hope they can cover enough basic talking points in their press conferences and speeches in order to look good for their 15 minutes of fame, so that way you vote for them again. And even though technology has helped so many companies become far more productive, this also means that they need fewer workers, right? Technology is advancing so rapidly that they just don't need as many people to operate anything. There's no job security anymore. There really never has been such a thing as job security, but in 2025, that's going to be an extinct concept for sure. And the thing that really triggers when things go from bad to worse in a recession like this is when confidence collapses. You know, when people start realizing that there's no way out of this mess, that's when everything falls apart. When people worry about if they're going to be able to pay their bills next month, people worry about if they're going to be able to get another job, if they lose their current one, people worrying about the government's inability to be able to fix these current problems, that's what leads to things going from bad to worse. Check this out, guys. Across the waterway here, I made a video several times at this old condo complex where everybody got evicted basically within a week because the place was unfit for living. And now everything is gone. It's all been knocked down since I left. 5 months ago, it was still standing. Now it's all completely gone, ready for another multi-million-dollar high-rise. So the bottom line is here, you don't have to wait for any official announcement of a recession. In fact, it might never come because they don't really want you to think that we're in one, because they know that so much of this economy is built on confidence, like we just talked about. But we see the credit card delinquencies and all the other forms of debt delinquencies rising. You see the retail sales starting to weaken, and you see more and more people struggling with debt and not be able to make their payments. That's all the warning signs you need. And one of the side effects and real severe consequences of their actions has been how unaffordable housing has become. Okay, in fact, they have essentially made housing unaffordable for an entire generation now, due to all of the poor decisions that were made over the past 5 years. Some of the expert economists right now are saying that we need a solid 10 to 15 years of solid income growth in order to restore affordability in the housing market, guys. And that's assuming home prices stay where they're at and don't appreciate over that next 10 to 15 years. They're saying that the market is so warped now that waiting for prices to fall isn't even realistic. Even though prices are falling, it doesn't matter because your income's not rising enough to even buy that property at a discounted price. That's the issue. We have the worst affordability for housing in American history right now, even worse than it was in 2006 before the last bubble burst. And we're in a situation right now where the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payments on the average person's mortgage right now costs 43% of someone's median income which is even worse than it was at the peak of unaffordability in 2006 when it was 41.5% of people's income. You know, they talk about how there's no bad loans anymore, and that's why we're not going to see a 2008 style collapse, because we don't have ninja loans and they're not just giving people mortgages that just have a pulse and no other qualifying factors. But what they did do this time is they overextended everyone and they allowed it to happen. And when you have so many people overextended and they don't have the income to keep up with these rising expenses, where do you think this is going to lead? You know, historically, when housing was more affordable, the principal, interest, and taxes and insurance payments were about 25 to 35% of someone's median income, guys. And now we're at 43%. According to Amherst Group's analytics, they have determined that the only way housing affordability is going to come back is if home prices fall at least 35%, mortgage rates fall 4.6%, which would put us at, less than a 2% mortgage right now, or we'd have to see household incomes rise by a whopping 55%. I mean, do any of those scenarios sound likely to you? I mean, really, the only most likely one to happen is the home prices falling by 35%. There are places where prices have already fallen by more than 20%. So it definitely is possible, but we're not there yet. And you know what's funny now is they're saying that lending standards are still too tight, and that's part of the problem with real estate. I mean, have you heard of something so ridiculous right now? They say that the current mortgage lending system only serves about the top 25% of credit-worthy borrowers, and that's about it. Well, it's not that it only serves the top 25% of borrowers, it's just that people don't have the incomes to qualify at today's prices. And let's not kid ourselves, guys. There are plenty of programs out there right now to get people to buy homes they can't afford. We still have VA loans. We still have FHA loans at 3.5% down. There are lots of programs that are 0% down if you don't make enough money. Fannie Mae just announced they're getting rid of the credit score requirement altogether. Like, what else do you want in order to make lending easy? The issue is that even with all these programs, home prices are still too high. And that's why we're likely to see prices go down. Out of all those things I mentioned, incomes going up 55%, it's not going to happen. Mortgage rates coming down into the low twos, it's not going to happen. So prices is the only realistic thing that we can count on to see change and actually make things more affordable. They say this is a problem because it leads too many people to being stuck as renters. They're never going to be able to own. Take a look at this. Got those automatic wakeboards out there. Seen a lot of those around here lately. Biff. And you know, it's funny because the government always claims that they want everybody to be able to own a home. They want everybody to be able to achieve the American dream, right? But how is that ever going to happen if they continue making laws and policies and mortgage programs that kind of work directly against it being affordable? And even if you have been able to manage to buy a home over the past few years, there's a good chance that your home has been losing value, because as of October, 53% of homes in the country had lost value over the past year, according to Zillow. Home prices have been falling in half of the markets, but even if your prices, the sale prices, haven't been falling in your area, there's a good chance your home equity still is. Take a look at this chart here that shows you in Denver, Colorado, for example, 91% of home values have dropped from their peaks, followed by 89% in Austin, Texas, 88% in Sacramento, California. More than 80% of homes in places like Jacksonville, Orlando, and Tampa have also lost value, along with 87% of homes losing value in Dallas and San Antonio. And those are just the top ones. Those are just the areas that are seeing the most homes lose value. That doesn't account for everywhere. Across the country, the average drop from peak valuations is now at 9.7%, so almost 10%. My definition of a housing crash has been a 20% drop within a 5-year time frame. So they're going back to 2022. It's only been 3 years. We still have time to reach that national 20% drop. And the way things are going, it looks like it's coming. Because the only time we saw this in recent history was back in 2012, when values went down by as much as 27% on average across the board. That was a housing crash. And of course, there were sections of the economy and parts of the country that saw much bigger dips than that. I mean, everything is pointing to this economic collapse getting worse. One of the recent things that was sent to me is how Americans are now more upside down on their car loans than ever before. Think about it. More people owe more on their car than it's worth than ever in American history. How is that a good thing? How is that a sign of strength in this economy? According to the most recent data from Edmunds, they're now saying that we have reached a record high of $6,905 as of the third quarter, where 28.1% all trade-in cars had negative equity, guys. That's almost 30%. It's almost 1/3. That's up from just the 24% that we saw in the first quarter of this year, and now we're sitting at record highs. Nearly 1/4 of those underwater trade-ins actually had more than $10,000 worth of debt on that car that is unpaid. Like everything that we've been talking about here, all the poor decisions that were made that got us here, people are still dealing with today, 5 years later. It's not like it's all over with. Everybody still has to contend with the bad decisions that were made when they thought it was a good decision. The choices that people made are catching up with them. Edmund says that a lot of this is because people bought cars too quickly and they took on loans during the pandemic car frenzy when prices were at record highs and people even paid over MSRP thinking that that was a great idea. They were flush with cash at the time. Seemed like, well, if we want a new car, it's now or never. There's a shortage. There is a supply chain issue. Same thing with the housing market. In fact, 8.3% of the trade-ins with negative equity had more than a whopping $15,000 in debt. And now that people are rolling their old debt into a new car loan, it's compounding the problem even further. You know, in the third quarter, car buyers who traded in vehicles with negative equity had a monthly average payment of $907 a month compared to the industry average at around $767 a month. They also finance about $11,000 more than the typical new vehicle buyer. And honestly, I'm surprised that these people can even qualify for these loans, given that incomes haven't been keeping up. If you're somebody who's in this situation, guys, you should at least pay off your car or get very close to paying off the debt you owe on it before you even think about trading it in. But if that's not an option, you need to trade down. When you sell the car for a loss, you need to buy something that's significantly more affordable, preferably that you can pay cash for. You know, my buddy Brandon over at Car Questions Answered, he sells cars on his lot over in North Carolina. Everything's like $5,000 or less. No financing. They only take cash. And those are all cars that run, that can probably last you at least a couple years, if not longer. And for $5,000, you can't beat that deal. But people don't want to do that because it makes their status look low. It makes them look poor. It doesn't give off the vibe that they want to have in order to impress all of their friends or their date or whoever. So they sign on the dotted line and take on a loan or a lease they can't afford. But I'm telling you, man, more and more people are starting to face the consequences of these bad decisions. And you're just going to continue seeing more of it as people still continue to make these bad decisions, even in 2025. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.